Okay, let's picture the scene. You walk into your living room and what's that sound? Drip, drip, drip. Or even worse, you feel that squish of a completely soaked carpet under your feet. It is an absolute homeowner's nightmare, right? Pure panic. But what you do in those next few minutes can literally mean the difference between a pretty manageable cleanup and a total catastrophic loss.
So let's just get right into it. Your house is flooding. What happens next? When water is getting into your home, you're not just fighting the puddle you can see. No, you're in a race against the clock to stop all the damage that's happening behind the scenes. Today, we're going to break down the entire crisis playbook, from that first critical hour all the way to the final restoration.
And the culprits? They're usually pretty familiar. You get a huge storm that just overwhelms everything. Or an old pipe finally gives out without any warning. Sometimes it's a nasty sewage backup. And believe it or not, even tiny cracks in the foundation can let a surprising amount of groundwater seep in. Each one of these is its own special kind of headache.
The second you spot that water, a clock starts ticking. I mean, immediately, the whole environment inside your house begins to change, and it's basically creating the perfect breeding ground for much, much bigger problems.
And here it is. This is probably the most critical fact to get your head around. This isn't just a suggestion, it's a biological reality. In a humid climate, your house can become a full-on mold incubator in as little as 24 hours. That one fact right there, it dictates every single thing that needs to happen next and how fast it needs to happen.
Which brings us to the most important window of all, the first hour. This is your moment. This is where you can make the biggest difference. Seriously, the things you do, or maybe more importantly, don't do, in these first 60 minutes are going to have a massive impact on the final cost and the time it takes to recover. And you can see here just how quickly things spiral. In just 1 hour, that water isn't just on the floor anymore. It's wicking up into your drywall, it's soaking the insulation, it's getting into the very skeleton of your house. You wait a full day, and suddenly you're not just fighting water damage, you're fighting a potential mold infestation. And after 2 days, the wood holding your house together can actually start to rot. It's a terrifying domino effect.
So, how do you fight back? Well, you do it with a plan. Professionals don't just show up and start mopping. They use a very specific science-based process. So let's walk through how they take a waterlogged disaster zone and turn it back into a safe, dry home.
And listen, this is not about shop vacs and a few box fans. Not at all. The real process is a systematic 3-phase battle. Phase 1, get all the standing water out fast. Phase 2, get rid of all the hidden moisture you can't see. And finally, Phase 3, rebuild everything that was damaged. You can't skip a single step. So Phase 1 is all about speed and, honestly, brute force. Pros bring in these massive truck-mounted extractors and pumps to pull literally gallons and gallons of water out of your house as quickly as humanly possible. The whole goal here is to stop the damage from spreading any further. Okay, now for the sciencey part. Even after all the visible water is gone, your walls, your floors, they are still completely saturated. So this phase uses these giant, powerful dehumidifiers and high-speed air movers to basically create a vortex of dry air. It literally pulls that trapped moisture out of the wood in the drywall before it has a chance to turn into mold or rot. And at last, once everything is confirmed to be bone dry, the rebuilding can start. This is where all the damaged stuff that couldn't be saved gets ripped out and replaced. We're talking new drywall, new flooring, whatever it takes to make your home look and feel like the disaster just never happened. Now you might be sitting there thinking, can't I just rent some equipment and do this myself? And that's a fair question. So let's look at why the professional approach is just so fundamentally different. It's not just about having bigger fans, it's about following a super strict set of industry standards. And this is the key, the IICRC S500. Just think of it as the official rule book for fixing water damage. It's a whole set of procedures based on the actual science of psychrometry, which is the science of drying. And here's why this really matters to you. Your insurance company knows this rulebook inside and out. Following it is one of the biggest keys to getting your claim approved without a huge headache.
So let's just put it side by side. A DIY job with towels and fans, you're only dealing with the water on the surface. A pro comes in with moisture meters to find exactly where that hidden water is, and then uses all that specialized gear to drag it out. The risk of doing it yourself isn't just that it might not work, it's that you could accidentally seal moisture inside your walls, which, trust me, leads to a much bigger, much more expensive problem down the road.
Okay, let's talk about money.
Because that's the question that's screaming in everyone's mind from the second they find a leak, right? Who is going to pay for all of this? This is where really understanding your insurance policy is absolutely non-negotiable.
And just to give you some perspective, that's the average claim size in a state like Texas, where the humidity makes mold a massive risk. You can see how the costs just add up so fast, from that initial emergency call all the way to the final coat of paint. And that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or at least the $10,000 question. And the answer, which is super frustrating, is always, it depends. So let's take a look at what's usually covered.
See, insurance companies draw a really firm line in the sand between sudden and accidental and gradual. So a pipe that just bursts in the middle of the night, that's almost always covered. But a slow leak behind the toilet that you kind of ignored for 6 months, yeah, they're going to call that a maintenance issue and you'll probably get a denial. And super important to know, water coming in from outside during a huge storm like overland flooding, that requires a totally separate flood insurance policy.
At the end of the day, your insurance policy is kind of like a partnership. You have a responsibility to act fast to mitigate or, lessen the damage. If you wait a week before calling for help, your insurance company can turn around and say, hey, all this mold damage could have been prevented, and they might actually have grounds to deny that part of your claim. Acting fast protects your home and your wallet. And that really brings us to the final thought here. A water disaster isn't just about what gets wet on the surface. It's about all that invisible damage that creeps in afterward. Knowing the timeline, understanding the process, and getting the insurance rules straight, that's what gives you the power to protect your biggest investment when literally every single second counts.